Okay. So Penn State's season is essentially back on track. We're bowl eligible now, boys.
Good.
Which doesn't mean they're going to go to a bowl game, as we found out last year.
That's a good point. That's a very good point.
You mean a little uglier and intenser than I would have liked, but came out with the W, so that's fine. And now we've got Michigan coming to town, so we're going to talk about that. We'll wrap up the Maryland game. In general, this has been more good than bad this year.
Yeah, it's been fine.
I'm amazed when I'm watching the game and all these texts, all the negative texts I'm getting from you guys. It's like, come on, it's only a game. You said they were going to lose or something, didn't you, early on?
Well, yeah. Why would I have made that conclusion, Mike, watching that first half?
It was 7-7 or something.
Yeah.
Grab your pencil and your paper. It's the Obligatory PSU Pregame Show. All right, so we are really into it. The stretch run of the Nittany Lions season. This is the Obligatory PSU Pregame Show, coming to you every game weekend throughout this roller coaster of a ride that has been 2021 for Penn State. We are here at the Speakeasy once again in the Gamble Mill in Bellefonte, one of the restored super cool spots here in Happy Valley. Encourage you to check it out if you're watching us locally or you're coming into town for one of these last remaining games, or if you're just visiting us here in the Valley anytime. I'm your fake host, Chris Buchignani. I swear to God, Brandon Noble has not been kicked off the show, but believe it or not, beloved campus icon Mike the Mailman,
Yes.
Noble's sick, which I have never known him to be in 6 years.
No, and this is 2 weeks now. Wow. Come on, Brandon, let's go.
It's not coronavirus, just so you know. But how are you feeling, Mike?
I never had a bad day. I'm good. And talking about the Maryland game,
Yes.
at no point was I concerned, because anytime I watch a Penn State game or any game and the defense is playing well, I think you're in good shape. I think defense can win games more than offense. So I wasn't skeptical of them winning at all.
Well, you know who was skeptical, and with good reason?
Yes.
Former OnwardState.com managing editor Kevin Horne.
Of course you were there.
You were in the stands.
I was there. Yeah, miserable place.
It is?
Yeah, I mean, the defense was stout, especially in the red zone, which is partially because offenses are bad in the red zone. But no doubt Penn State's defense is really good in the red zone when the playbook is sort of consolidated.
Yep.
But the defense wasn't honest. I mean, it was one of their poorer games of the year, I thought. Jesse Luquetta's loss was really felt acutely, I thought.
Yep.
But, it's not often that you have a game where a wide receiver sets the school record for reception yards, but the other team actually has more yards in the air than your team did. That's pretty rare, I would imagine.
That's a very good point.
Maryland's game plan was the same as it was last year, which is creases, get underneath, and find the one-on-ones and hit them. And he did. Tagliova did more often than not. So a couple good lucky turnovers / forced turnovers in the red zone would really put that out of hand. But no, I mean, look, with Penn State's offense as average to poor as it is, there's not a single gimme game on the schedule.
No.
So you take the ones that you can get, especially in the league on the road.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I left the game feeling fine. You can't complain. I mean, with the way the season has gone, you cannot complain about any win, even against a bad Maryland team with a decent offense, frankly.
Especially when the line was 10.5 and they were only winning by 10. That interception was golden for a lot of people.
Oh, that was a heck of a cover.
I know. That's a good beat. Not a bad beat, but a good beat.
Heck of a cover.
Oh, yeah. So it seemed like there was a lot of Penn State fans there. I heard a lot of...
Yeah, there always is. I mean, it was probably like 30% Penn State fans, maybe a little bit more. Yeah, it's always heavily attended by Penn State. A lot of Penn Staters down in that area.
Yeah. It's usually the case. Well, it's good. I mean, I heard them. I saw the band. I could hear it.
Full blue band trip. First time in a couple years, so...
Yeah, you could hear the Blue Band on TV, which is awesome.
Yep.
Frankly, more than you hear them in Beaver Stadium.
Yeah, right.
Considerably more.
That's true. That's a good point.
So you needed to win this one. I think, so Maryland is, like, they're, perceived crappiness is a little bit of a mirage, I think, because of how their offense just fell apart due to turnovers versus Iowa. To your point, Kev, like, Tagovailoa is not his brother, but he's a solid college football quarterback. Sure. They've got some talent. Jarrett, a five-star guy, played like it. And Mike Locksley's a good offensive coach. Yep. I thought comparing this game to last season, and I agree the game plan was basically the same. Yep. The game in Beaver Stadium last year in the fake season, it was like one of the worst defensive performances I have seen from a Penn State team ever, frankly. Mm-hmm. And you saw in this game the improvement at every level of the defense over what we saw from, in many cases, the same players last year.
Right, 20% better in every position, basically. Yeah. And that's enough to win by whatever they won by 19. Why you put John Dotson out one-on-one against your safety, I don't quite understand. Yeah, I'm sure Maryland fans are a little irked about that. but I'm certainly glad they did, because what a performance.
Yeah, really. I mean, it was Dotson and Jair Brown who beat Maryland. But Kevin, we'll talk about Jahan in the next segment.
Oh, question, Kevin. It seemed like 1 minute and 15 seconds left when Penn State got the ball in the first half. I heard a lot of boos when they walked off the field. I think they were Penn State fans booing.
They were. I was on the very opposite side of the stadium, so I didn't have the opportunity. Though, had I been on the other side, I certainly would have. Yeah, I mean, we can. I don't know if there's enough time in this show to sort of analyze how stupid that was. When
who makes that call? The coach?
Head coach, head coach, Mike. Wow. In consultation, he said after the game, in consultation with his two coordinators. So.
Oh, okay.
So I actually am going to cut James a little bit of slack. Okay. There was the bizarre sequence at the very end where they take a timeout, they look like they're setting up to take a shot downfield, and they don't do it. So you take a timeout to basically kneel on the ball and end the half. Yeah. I will give him the benefit of the doubt and say, okay, his line of thinking was we're going to talk it over, and we decide not to do it. Hmm. What I thought was bizarre was the way the preceding minute and 7 seconds that they started with was used.
They were running a hurry-up offense to hand the ball off. Right.
So and then had all 3 timeouts. So they went into the half with 2 timeouts they didn't use.
You got to try to score in that situation against a bad Maryland defense when it's basically a tie game and you have the ball with 1:10 left. You have to try to score. Right, I don't mind running on the first play and then calling a time. I think they were playing chicken with they wanted Loxley to call the timeout from Maryland, and it didn't happen. And then by that time, you wrote 20 seconds run off. They continued to run hurry up, and they take one shot, and then they gave up. I mean, they couldn't. It was just indecisiveness, right?
Definitely.
Either run it out, kneel the ball 3 times and get out of there, or try to score, right? And in my opinion, you have to try to score. But what you did was the worst possible thing, which is look like an idiot.
Because they always talk about these situationals they look at all week long. Obviously, they could have gone over something like that. I mean, to me, that was terrible.
It's one of the dumbest moments of the Franklin era, right? When there's a lot of them, right? Frankly, that was unbelievable. I could not believe what I was watching.
And indicative of the sort of bad at in-game details, dithering, indecisiveness, which has been one of the more common complaints against Franklin, is that as an in-game coach, he leaves quite a lot to be desired. So it doesn't end up costing you, but it's the sort of thing that could cost you in a close game against a better opponent, like we're going to see this weekend. Real quickly, a couple other notes. Pass protection continues to be iffy. Yeah. Sean Clifford, not his best day, but made good decisions with the football, did not turn it over. That's what you want to see. Just make good decisions. Don't give the ball to the other team.
Kevon Lee, of course, averaged more than 6 yards a carry, but that means you take him out for most of the game, right? They want to do this running back by committee. All of the running backs can't do it. Lee seems like the best option. Of course, he comes out the very next series. But
Jahan Dotson could do it. We'll talk about that on the other side. Stay with us. Welcome back to the obligatory PSU Pregame Show, coming to you from the Speakeasy at the Gamble Mill in Bellefonte. Chris Buchignani with Mike the Mailman and Kevin Horne. And guys, I just wanted to take a segment of the show to pause and review and appreciate what is turning out to be one of the superlative offensive performances in Penn State football history, both single season and career. And this week is the perfect week to do it after Jahan Dotson set the all-time single-game receiving yardage mark, 242 yards, 3 scores. And Mike, just painfully close to that fourth. He was just couldn't quite skirt the sideline and stay in bounds. But he broke free all day, and I wanted him to get that fourth score so bad. But man, what a performance!
Yeah, funny, on that one, the long one, the 80-yard one, 85-yard.
Yeah,
he actually had presence of mind to direct the one guy to block that guy, which is really like, how do you do that? It's like, but he's faster than I thought. I mean, he really took off. His route running was unbelievable.
If that guy's not your favorite player, I don't know what you're watching.
It's my bride's favorite player. She loves this guy.
Yeah, both on and off the field, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And last year was perhaps the most unlikable team in my fanhood. That was the one sort of lone bright spot, right? Even after the last game, they asked him, are you guys going to play in a bowl game or not? And he's like, I will take the opportunity to play any game I possibly can for the Penn State and Nittany Lions, and I'll leave it at that. Yep. Where all of his other teammates were like, it's private, we'll tell you later, right? And even after the game, he's crying, talking about how much he appreciates his parents. His interviews are all great. And most of these interviews are canned, and there's a little bit disdain for the reporters, and they just throw out superlatives. John throws out his superlatives, but you can tell he means almost all of what he says. He speaks from the heart, and he's really been a great representation of what a Penn State football player ought to be and can be and is in his case. And he's a great player. So, yeah, that guy's got to be everyone's favorite player. Really just a great dude and super talented.
Being a great player and being so humble, you don't usually get that. He's just so down to earth. Just a real nice kid. I agree with the kid.
Earned himself a lot of money last week.
I mean, no doubt.
Yep.
I was going to say, all made possible by the decision to forego the draft in an era when across college football and in Happy Valley, you see a lot of guys jump at the first opportunity to go to the NFL and not really care about where they're going to get drafted. And listen, I don't begrudge anybody the chance to go make a living. If you're good enough to play professional football, God bless you. But college football is a pretty good deal. And a lot of times, I think younger players who have eligibility remaining don't appreciate how difficult it is to make a 53-man roster. Like, you look at Noble, I wish he was here to talk about it. I mean, his journey of going undrafted and then having to fight and claw to make a roster every single year, that tougher path is the difference sometimes between going in the first 3 rounds where you have guaranteed contract or afterwards. So it was a smart move. I think he's very fortunate to have made that decision. We're glad he did. I do want to throw a shout out, and we're talking about Jahan Dotson, but you mentioned that block. I have been a little rough on the tight ends over the course of the season, but Theo Johnson threw a really nice block, made a couple of clutch catches. So good for him. But Kev, I wanted to talk to you about Jahan specifically in the context of some of the other names he is alongside now in the Penn State record books. The single season yardage record he broke, I know, is one of your all-time favorite Penn State players, Deion Butler. And he does remind you a lot in the way he plays the game, Mike, I think, of Bobby Engram.
Definitely.
Right? Who, for my money, is the best receiver in Penn State history, with all due respect to Allen Robinson.
Yeah. I mean, look, Jahan, same sort of body type, right? And just he's faster than all the running backs, which you don't necessarily want. But it's gonna be great. I mean, Penn State's becoming a wide receiver factory. I mean, the NFL next year will be Dotson, Godwin, and Robinson, which is nothing to shake a stick at. Wow. So, yeah, couldn't happen to a nicer dude too. And Penn State's probably below 500 this season if they don't have Jahan Dotson, or if Dotson goes to the NFL. Because Parker Washington has been a good player at times, but had a bunch of key drops last week at Maryland. And, Keandre Lambert-Smith's done some good things, but without Jahan, you probably lose to Auburn. You might have lost to Wisconsin, and you definitely lose to Maryland. So that could have been a really, really rough year without just that one piece. And he's bailed Sean out a lot. He put it anywhere near the guy, he's going to catch it. Even in triple coverage, as we've seen this year. So,
and I am by no means fading Jahan Dotson to point this out. I'm more just boosting up Bobby Engram, a player I love. Jahan is most likely going to continue to move up into even more rarefied air in the program record books till we get out of this season. And he's still not going to touch some of Bobby's records. And those were set during 11-game regular seasons when your bowl stats didn't count. So that just shows you the the quality of player he is in the company of.
Oh, yeah.
And Bobby Ingram won the inaugural Biletnikoff Award. I don't see another player in college football, and this is not me with my Homer goggles on.
Yeah.
I don't see another receiver this season who deserves it more than Jahan Dotson does, for exactly the reason you just said, how big a part he's been of this offense.
Well, with due respect to Bobby Ingram, who may very well be the greatest, he also had Kerry Collins throwing to him, and
no doubt.
Boone and Marco Rivera and the rest of those guys blocking for him, or blocking for the quarterback. So
And Wally Richardson, too, don't forget.
And Wally,
two of his big seasons.
Wally was there.
Sure. So, yeah, no, it's the most important part of our offense, and hopefully he'll be a big part if Penn State wins out. We'll talk about bowl scenarios in the next segment. But, if they win out, Dot's going to have to be a big part of that.
Absolutely.
So one stat, I've got a plethora of stats you're seeing. One I want to throw out. So his career receptions total puts him 5th all-time in the record books. And he just passed Chris Godwin, Jordan Norwood, Derek Williams. Career receiving yardage right up there with Allen Robinson, Chris Godwin, Derek Moy. Really impressive performance.
Yeah.
Very impressive. Very good.
Gotta love it. Stay with us. We'll be back soon.
Life is just a little bit happier here in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. Whether you're taking an adventurous hike or spending your days in a sunny garden, whether you're checking out a small town or taking in the vibrancy of a small city, we can explore the wonders under the earth. Or find inspiration in history. We can cheer together, or laugh together. Refuel. Recharge. Be inspired. Be delighted. And well, get happy. Find your happy place here in Happy Valley, Pennsylvania. Plan your next adventure at happyvalley.com.
Listen to that tomahawk chop, you can't make it stop. Listen to the sound of the team in the tunnel now. Listen in the zombie nation while they jump around. Listen to the hard hits, listen to the marching band. Listen down.
Welcome back to the Obligatory PSU Pregame Show from the Speakeasy at the Gamble Mill. And believe it or not, your Penn State Nittany Lions have a not unrealistic path to represent the Big Ten in the Rose Bowl this season, Kevin.
Yeah, I'd put it at about 25% at this point, honestly.
Yeah, but it's pretty good.
The bowl situation is wide open.
It
right?
is wide open.
It could be.
Wide open.
So, again, for my money, despite what the committee thinks, by not ranking Penn State before last week, by the time this comes out, you'll know what they ranked them. I assume they will be ranked by the time you see this. Penn State, for my money, is the best 3-loss team in the country. Now, they give it to some SEC lackey ultimately, but Penn State wins out. They're 9-3. There would be no other team in the Big Ten besides Ohio State with less than 3 losses, assuming Ohio State also wins out, which is very likely. Yeah. Iowa, the only thing that'll keep Penn State from the Rose Bowl if it wins out and Ohio State wins out is Iowa, because Iowa only has 2 losses right now. Now they have a terrible schedule. They will, assuming Iowa wins out, they will lose to Ohio State in the Big Ten championship. Yeah. But that may be not true because Wisconsin has the head-to-head against Iowa. But Wisconsin, if they lose in the Big Ten championship, will have 4 losses. That's not going to happen. Plus, Penn State has a head-to-head. Right. I think if both Wisconsin and Iowa win out, Wisconsin goes to the Big Ten championship and not Iowa, right? Which would really hurt Penn State because let's say Iowa wins out and Wisconsin wins out, they're going to put 10-2 Iowa with the head-to-head against Penn State in the Rose Bowl instead of Penn State. But if Iowa trips up against Minnesota, they have Minnesota. That's probably their toughest opponent, and I don't even want to get into the rest of their schedule. But they have 3 games left. They need to lose one of those. They sit at 9-3. Even if they have the head-to-head, they probably won't be ranked because they don't have any quality wins. Right. Rose Bowl probably takes Penn State. But Penn State has to win out, right? If Penn State loses to Michigan and Michigan State and beats Rutgers, that puts them in the running for what would be fun for me, largely, because there's a bowl game in Nashville, bowl game in Las Vegas, or the bottom of the Big Ten, 7-win Big Ten teams. You can go to Vegas. You can go to Nashville. There's also the Pinstripe Bowl in there. New York is kind of fun. Of course, the Detroit one is in there as well. So that's sort of a wild card. You don't want to do that. If you win one of the 2, assuming you beat Rutgers, and you win one of the 2, either Michigan or Michigan State, then you're sort of in that Florida purgatory where you have to either go to Tampa or Orlando for the Citrus or the Outback. But you went out. And even if you don't get Rose, there's an outside, not impossible chance that you get one of the 4 at-large New Year's Six bowls at 9-3 with really 4 or 5 ranked quality wins.
Oh, yeah, that's a good point.
Yep,
and so just to lay out how we got here, because when you lose at home to Illinois, you think, well, the Rose Bowl's off the table. But Illinois give it and take it away because there were 2 big upsets that happened last weekend that really helped open the way for Penn State to maybe get to Pasadena. And one of them was Illinois beating Minnesota. And then the other one, the big one, was Purdue knocking off Michigan State. So as Kevin said, we are, if we weren't already, big time rooting against Iowa the rest of the way. And I think that game against the Gophers is going to be tough. They got to go to Lincoln at the end of the season. Nebraska just keeps getting close, getting close. I could see that being one that they get. And then on top of that, you just want Penn State to win out and Ohio State to win out because both those teams still have to play both teams from Michigan.
Right. You need Ohio State to get to the college football playoff.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because that opens up, the second best bowl, third best bowl, fourth best bowl, et cetera.
Great how we can root for Ohio State once in a while.
Oh, we want them to win the rest of the way. And then it could set up, again, Iowa's going to be a thorn in our side, but it could set up nicely for that last game of the year, Penn State, Michigan State, to be a play-in bowl for the Rose Bowl.
Oh, yeah.
Which would be really fun to go out there and do that. But again,
that's cool.
The committee is going to find a way to screw Penn State, I'm sure, and put Iowa in. Oh, look at the head-to-head, even though the quarterback situation, they'd make an exception if it was reversed. That is what it is. But it's still a lot to play for, is the point.
So root for the Nittany Lions, hold your nose, root for the Buckeyes, and if we lose, maybe we go to Vegas. Stay with us. We'll be back.
What a great spot. Damn it, I've been waiting all week. Counting down the days till I'm back in my seat.
Welcome back to the obligatory PSU pregame show. I'm your fake host, Chris Buchignani, joined this week only, once again, by Mike the Mailman and Kevin Horne. No Brandon Noble, unbelievably for Brandon, under the weather this week. So we wish him well. We hope he's better real soon. It's not COVID. He'll be fine. We're at the Speakeasy at the Gamble Mill. And guys, not to drag down the mood of the program too much. We like to have fun and keep it light on obligatory, but I guess I would be remiss if I didn't at least acknowledge that we have just gone through the 10th anniversary of what is arguably, if you're a student of Penn State history, but most likely the darkest days in the history of the institution and the state college community. And so I just wanted to pause for a couple of moments before we get into Michigan in the next segment and reflect on where we've been and where we are now in light of it.
Go ahead and reflect, Chris. You're the one that brought it up.
Damn it. Well, I guess, again, this is a short segment. This is TV. To really get into this, we'd have to do a more in-depth conversation than we even do on the obligatory PSU podcast, which you can get wherever you find your podcasts, and should. When I think about where we were mentally and as a community 10 years ago, and the way things looked when the sanctions got handed down 6 months afterwards, for our biggest concern to be whether the coach who took us to 3 New Year's Six Bowls in 4 years might leave and go to USC because he's done such a good job reviving the program is what we have to worry about. I don't know. It seems like a good problem to have, right?
Yeah. Well, for sure. I mean, yeah, it puts the Illinois loss into perspective, I guess. I was a sophomore when that all went down, and still not a day goes by where something doesn't cross my mind about it, right? Such a consequential moment in anyone who loves Happy Valley's life, right?
It was so shocking. It was just like
so many
wow.
twists and turns. Like, met my wife because of that. Without that, I probably wouldn't be getting married to the person I'm getting married to, because we met, at some of those court proceedings. So very weird, very serendipitous, and still sort of lingers here 10 years later with lots of questions, lots of collateral consequences. But somehow, we're still kicking.
Yeah.
It's not, as board chair Karen Peets said, a distant memory, but it's a very, very front of mind memory at this point. But the health of the institution a decade later and its football program is nothing short of remarkable. And ironically, we sort of owe that to a lot of the people that were torn down because of it for building the foundation that allowed us to survive the onslaught. And, I don't know.
And other Big Ten schools, like you said, when you go away, a lot of times they'll bring up Sandusky when they see a Penn State shirt you have on. Don't they always remind you of that or something? So people like to go after you when you're down. I mean, but Penn State has overcome it. I think they have really overcome this whole situation, and we're better for it, I think.
So you were still working at the post office at that time, Mike. What was that like? Were you like a grief counseling service for people coming in?
Well, it's funny you say it because CBS wanted to do a thing on my post office back then, but they said we're going to wait for a year because of all the situations going on.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And then the year later when
that was a total puff piece on you, by the way. It just portrayed you in the most positive light. It was disgusting.
So silly.
Right, yeah. Not the real Mike the Mailman.
One-sided journalism.
Yeah. That's right. And then a year after it happened, a lot of people from the old bank come over and thank me for it because they saw the show, the CBS bit. Thank you for the positive news. So that they were happy with it. I was happy doing it. But
that segment, Mike, on you was the most grossly inaccurate misrepresentation of Penn State by the national media I can think of.
Yeah, I can't think of anything else
By
that,
far.
that
So
they
that's
screwed
really
up.
good. Thank you. Appreciate
Right.
You know, so we all had the experience that
Sure.
I think most Penn Staters did not, and to this day, I don't know whether it was worse or better to be at ground zero of this thing, because I've talked to a lot of people who are out in the wider world.
Yeah.
And the thing that stunk, if you were in that position, was that even though we were getting hammered with it every day, and like my wife had reporters hounding her on her way out of work, and you just couldn't get away from it, you had a built-in support group who understood what you were going through. Every person you saw got it. If you were working in some cubicle somewhere, and Penn State was a huge part of who you were, nobody understood. So I honestly, as much as it was no bowl of cherries to be here in Happy Valley, I think we maybe got the better end of the deal as far as the Penn State community goes.
Yeah, it couldn't have been anywhere else to watch that unfold. Yeah, no doubt about it. And all these retrospectives sort of bring out a lot of emotions, some good and some bad, depending on who's writing it or recording it or whatever. But I'm old now. I can't believe it's been 10 years. A third of my life ago that happened, which is insane, and I still think about it every day.
Third of my life, too.
That's right.
You see what we're talking about? All right, enough of this, guys. I just wanted to mention it. We couldn't let it go past, but now we got the Wolverines coming to Happy Valley. We'll talk about it next. Stay with us.
He's innocent.
Okay, we are back here on the obligatory PSU pregame show, back into our normal lighthearted, nonsensical mode, because we've got the Wolverines coming to town. We just laid out for you how there's still a lot to play for Penn State, possible path to the Rose Bowl, rooting for the Nittany Lions and the Buckeyes to go undefeated, or maybe a berth in the New Year's Six Bowl. But either way, you want to lay down a marker against the divisional rival. And one of the historical leaders of the Big Ten. So before we get into previewing the game, I just want to get quickly, guys, your reaction on the helmet stripe promotion we're doing, where we're doing essentially like a second whiteout, but in order to make it a little bit different, they're going to have the people at the 50-yard line wear the blue, which I don't know, might end up getting ruined by the weather, but what do you think, Kevin?
Yeah, like pretty dumb, but doesn't matter at all.
I'm not a huge fan.
I'm not worked up about it at all.
Okay,
Like, it's just be a full whiteout, but they won't do that because their PR brain's like, oh, we can only have one whiteout to keep it special. Yeah, super dumb, but who cares?
I did share this with my bride. I thought Maryland's helmets were the worst ever. They look like they should be on motorcycles. These guys with these red, whatever color.
They're never going to do a helmet game in Maryland. First of all, they couldn't get enough people in the stands. But
I've always liked the Michigan helmets. Actually, I thought it's a throwback the way they used to be. I did like that, but the promo, I don't know about that. I'm not too excited either.
Anyway, no thanks.
No thanks.
But it ought to be, it'll be funny. You'll be able to see who's the rich people and not by seeing who's wearing blue going into the stadium, because they're the ones at the 50-yard line seats. So it's a very classist promo, if you ask me.
Well, I'm just worried that the weather is going to ruin it. Listen, if you are going to the game on Saturday and it looks like the forecast is going to be bad at kickoff, here's the trick. You get a white garbage bag, okay? You punch a hole in the bottom of the garbage bag, and that's your white poncho. You can even put it over your raincoat. Don't ruin the helmet stripe game. All right, but let's move on and talk about the actual contest. Michigan has bounced back fairly respectably from a bad fake season, just like Penn State has. Their schedule maybe a little softer than the Nittany Lions to this point. Their toughest competition was against Michigan State, and they lost. Of course, they haven't had the stinker against Illinois, or an Illinois-type team like Penn State did. But I still feel like this is a very, very important high-pressure, high-stakes game for Jim Harbaugh, because if he loses this one, then he's staring down the barrel of potentially 0-3 against Michigan State, Penn State, and Ohio State in a year where he's coming off taking a 50% pay cut.
Yeah. Well, Michigan fans have to be happy overall with where they're at, right? That was sort of a downward spiral that has been sort of quelled despite the Michigan State loss. I mean, it's a pick'em game, right? I mean, neutral site, Michigan's favorite against Penn State.
Yep.
Beaver Stadium, it's basically even. So it'll be hopefully a good football game, a good matchup. Hopefully Penn State's up for the challenge. They do have some good players. They also have like some quarterback issues-ish.
Yep.
Right, they've gone through a couple. They rotate a little bit. Cade McNamara seems to be like the main guy, but they go back and forth. But their defense is very stout. I mean, the best player on the field is probably Aiden Hutchinson, their defensive end, who's been there seems like forever, who's just an absolute beast. And Caden Wallace is going to need some help on the end there, because that Caden Wallace versus Aiden Hutchinson is not a matchup that Penn State wants to have. So they're going to have to get crafty there. And put some extra manpower on that side of the field. Otherwise, Sean Clifford's in for a rough game.
He can roam to the other side, too. You can always do that.
Well, we're not going to – hopefully we don't run at all. Hopefully we just need some pass protection.
That's true.
So that could be a complete game wrecker in Aiden Hutchinson. But
Mike the Mailman and I might be rooting for him next year on Sundays. He'd make a nice mid-first round pick of the Philadelphia Eagles, I think. But, yeah, I am not looking forward to seeing him lining up against either one of Penn State's offensive tackles.
Yeah.
no.
The quarterback situation with Michigan, to me, is interesting in that McNamara, who is their primary guy, seems to have stabilized the position in a way that they really haven't had it in the last several seasons. And yet Jim Harbaugh can't seem to help himself but keep going to the promising but unseasoned freshman McCarthy. They really seemed like they wanted to make J.J. McCarthy a thing against Indiana last week. He comes in, he throws the pick while the game is still not out of hand. I mean, credit to Indiana. They've had all kinds of injuries and problems. They have tried to stick in these games. They just don't have the horses. I would love to see that back and forth quarterback switching, because I think that works against them. I'm expecting, though, to see mostly McNamara this week.
Yeah, me too. And look, Penn State's defense is going to be Penn State's defense, right? So I think it's going to be a low-scoring affair.
Me too.
We're going to get to numbers soon, but I do like the under in this situation, because I just think both quarterbacks are sort of so-so, and both defenses have just gamers that is going to keep the score down. But yeah, Michigan, really, I think one of the surprises of the Big Ten this year is their record at this point. They're a top 10 team coming into Beaver Stadium. That typically doesn't go well for Penn State, but I do think we match up pretty well against the Wolverines. As long as Jahan Dotson will do Jahan Dotson things, we need that to happen. Keep Kevon Lee in the game, please. Stop rotating. Kevon Lee all game, and we'll see how it goes.
Going back to my point about the importance of this game for Jim Harbaugh, paradoxically, you would think a 9-3 season at Michigan after the year they had last year would be pretty good. But Kev, you always talk about adjusting expectations as the season goes on. You spent a lot of the year in the top 10. And if that 9-3 is 3 losses to Sparty, Penn State, and the Buckeyes, natives are going to be restless in Ann Arbor, I think.
Yeah,
I'll be right.
And a big game for Penn State, too, because if James Franklin wants the USC or LSU job, he's got to win this game. Right? Otherwise, they're not going to be interested. So important for both parties to some extent.
So Jim Harbaugh is fighting to keep his job on Saturday, and James Franklin is fighting to leave his.
Theoretically.
Yeah. We'll see. Time will tell.
Okay. Well, Mike, we're going to get to your trends, and we're going to give our score predictions coming up next.
Hi, I'm Mike the Mailman. If you or your loved one or a friend has a gambling problem, don't hesitate to call the number below on the screen. They're there to help. Hi, everybody. Mike the Mailman with another edition of Trends to Treasure. This will be for the weekend of November 20th and 21st. First up, we have Illinois at Iowa. Iowa has covered 4 of the last 5 games, so the pick here will be the Iowa Hawkeyes. Next up, we have East Carolina at Navy. Navy has covered 5 of the last 5 games, so the selection here would be we would go with Navy. Our third selection today is Michigan at Maryland. Michigan has covered 5 of the last 5 games, so go with the visiting Wolverines minus the points. For our bonus selection this week, we go to the NFL. We have Miami visiting the New York Jets. Miami has covered 6 out of the last 6 games, so go with the Miami Dolphins here. That's it for this week's Trends to Treasure. I'm Mike the Mailman, and don't forget, bet with your head and not with your heart. Go get 'em.
Better than cryptocurrency, those trends to treasure.
Absolutely, yeah. Keep it going.
Welcome back to the Obligatory PSU Pregame Show. We are at the Speakeasy in the Gamble Mill in Bellefonte. a super cool historical building which has been restored beautifully.
Very nice.
A lot of cool stuff here. Very nice restaurant, nice pub, and this speakeasy place is super cool. Glad to be back here. I'm your fake host, Chris Buchignani, with Kevin Horne and Mike the Mailman. This is our random number generator segment where we randomly generate score predictions. This week for Penn State versus Michigan, we're going to get Noble's score prediction, and since he's not here, let's start with him. Mike the Mailman, you've got Brandon's score prediction. What do you got?
Brandon Noble hates Michigan more than any school. So
No doubt.
Penn State's going to win by a lot. He said just a lot. He didn't say every number, but he said they're going to win by a lot. I said, okay, good enough for me.
Yeah, Brandon Noble was part of one of Penn State's most successful streaks against Michigan. He was 3-1
Yep.
against the Wolverines in his career, including like 3 all-timers.
Oh, yeah.
The 94 road win where Bobby Ingram caught the game-winning touchdown. And then the snow game where Joe Nastasi had the fake field goal score to seal the win. And then Penn State goes out to Ann Arbor and wins again in 1996. I, on the other hand, got to Happy Valley as a freshman in 1997 and got to watch a 9-game losing streak to Michigan where we went 11 years without a win over the Wolverines. So I still cherish every single win over Michigan. I'm going to do my prediction now. And as much as I would like to say, I think Penn State is going to come out victorious on Saturday, I don't think so. I think, to your point, Kev, it is going to be a close game. I do not love the matchup of Michigan's defense versus Penn State's offense. I think, again, because of the situation with the coaching staff there, they may be a little bit more desperate for the win than Penn State. And we feel good because of the final score, aided by a pick six at the end. But I did not love what I saw out of the team in College Park last week. So I have Michigan winning 24-17. I hate it. I hate myself.
Okay.
Send me hate.
I'll take it. Our biggest fan, my sister and Alice in Asheville, North Carolina, called me.
Hi, Alice.
Hi, Alice. After the game last week, she called me, she said, Mikey, didn't you predict Penn State would beat Maryland by 17 or 18? I said, yeah, I did. She said, how do you do that? I said, well, I get lucky once in a while. So I'm going to tell my sister and everyone else, I think Penn State will win by 9. I think Penn State's a better team. I don't think the Michigan teams are good at all. I like Penn State this week, easily. 9's easy. That's a 2-score game. So you guys can breathe throughout the game. Last week, I know you couldn't because it was so close. But this week, I think it's going to be...
There were a lot of things in the matchup I like. I picked this score, and I was like, I'm just going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with Michigan. Just my gut feeling. Don't feel great against the Wolverines. But I do have, I have like Michigan PTSD because of that long losing streak I talked about. Yeah, it's tough. It's tough for me to pick the Nittany Lions over the Wolverines. But I get it. Jahan Dawson's going to be the best player on the field this weekend.
By far.
Kev, what do you got?
It's tough. This is a tough one to pick, right? Because Michigan's largely untested besides Michigan State. Penn State is completely tested, battle-scarred. Yeah. And you don't really like what you see sometimes more often than you like what you see. But I don't know. By the time you watch this, I think the line will have shifted towards Michigan's favor, right? Right now, as we record this, it's a pick'em, which is, there's no line. It's a winner. It's even. I think Michigan, by the time the game comes around, will be favored by 2 or so. If I had to guess, we'll see if I'm right on how the public money goes. 27-20 Michigan. Game ends in a strip sack by Aiden Hutchinson, and the blue, the 50 people wearing blue and the 100,000 wearing white have to file out at the same time.
So Brandon and I can cheer like crazy this week. We'll cheer them on this week.
We'll be cheering them on too, Mike. Trust me.
It's true.
It's the first time this season we've had a 50-50 split of the panel.
That's true.
And it's funny because you've got the 2 negative guys, me and Brandon, going 50-50, and the 2 positive guys, you and Mike, going 50-50.
Right.
So it's a true pick-up.
Yeah.
True pick-up. You're right.
Vegas knows. So I would love to be wrong. I'd love to be wrong. Put it this way: if Penn State plays like it played against Ohio State, they're going to win by 9, right? Yep. If they play like they played against almost every other team, they're going to lose by a touchdown. So you have to go with what you know. And what I know is a stout defense. very bend but don't break defense, though, and an inconsistent offense. And I just don't like that equation, especially given the playmakers that they have on defense. Not that we don't, but, we're one, TCF or whatever play away, missed tackle away from, going down 14 and it's over. So,
They should know you want to go to the Rose Bowl, so that's going to help.
Yeah, they definitely care about me, Mike. But they should want to go to the Rose Bowl. That's an awesome bowl game. I'd love to see us win out there. Finally, I've never seen us win out there. Starts
Road to the Rose
today.
Bowl starts this weekend. We'll be back next week with Brandon Noble. Go State.